Hi beautiful, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to try out the latest product that I discovered from Kmart, and these are the eyeshadow palettes that I picked up from Kmart. I'm not actually quite sure when they launched in New Zealand. I know for a fact that this specific palette has been out in Australia for quite a while, and I'm actually quite excited that I managed to grab my hands on this palette. So I have the Nightfall collection right here, which has your smoky greens, blues and reds and a lot of black in this palette. And oh my god, the quality of the packaging is undeniably good. So the whole palette retails for $12 and you get 12 shades, and this exactly looks like the MAC eyeshadow palette that retails for almost $200. Sorry, there's 15 shades in total, and this is what it looks like. So you have like the 3 mattes in here and the rest are usually shimmers, and I feel like it's a great deal. And the other palette that I have is this one right here, and this one is called the Berry collection. Now this is more of like your rosy, pinky slash matte mauvey tones of eyeshadow. Again, you have the matte transition, and I'm actually quite excited to play with these palettes right here. For today's look, I feel like I am going to use maybe the Nightfall because I'm interested to see what the quality is like. Another thing I purchased from Kmart is this Studio Finish Face Palette, and this one only retails for $7, which is pretty good. I mean, the packaging is very heavy, and for $7 it is a great steal. So in here you have a contour shade, this is a bronzer, you get a blush and then 2 highlights. Like looking at it from the pan, the contour looks a little bit too gray and it could be ashy, and the bronzer shade has got a lot of shimmers. It comes with a decent size mirror though, which is really good. It's pretty sturdy, pretty heavy, and I'm actually quite excited to try this on as well. For foundation, I actually use the Kmart OXX Studio lightweight foundation, which I quite like, except I had to mix this with a different foundation because this one's a little bit too light for my skin tone. We are going to pick up this shade right here, which looks a little bit too cool toned for my liking, but we're just gonna go with it. So I'm going to grab my Eco Tools fan brush, and it's not overly powdery, which is really good. Does it even show up? Okay, so I feel like I need a bronzer beforehand because this shade right here has got a sheen and it's definitely highlighting my scars, and I don't know if it's actually showing up on my skin though. I definitely see a little bit of definition, but not intense. I feel like if you have a fairer skin tone and a drier complexion, this would work for you. But it kind of worked on my nose contour. The contour shade is no go. I don't want to use the bronzer shade though because it has a little bit of shimmer, so that could be a good thing for eyes. But yeah, not a fan of the contour shade. I feel like it just enhances my textures and it left like a sheen, but in from afar it looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to go on with the blush, and the blush doesn't really appear to be pigmented, so we'll see. I definitely picked up a bit. I can't tell if the blush is showing up because of these lights. Okay, so the blush is definitely showing up. The lights are just washing it out. It's a pretty blush. Like, it's a type of blush where you can't easily overdo it. Okay, so that's actually looking pretty good. So for the highlight, I have this shade right here that I'm going to try. Ooh, that's a nice highlight. So that's what it looks like there. And I'm going to dust off my brush a little bit to get rid of the excess highlight. The highlight is there, but it's definitely pretty subtle. But that's a pretty highlight. I am going to try out this powder right here as well. That has a little bit of a sheen, so maybe I'll mix the two together. That's a really good highlighter for $7. Like, I'm not even mad about this palette for not working because the highlight itself is just phenomenal. And for $7, you get a mirror, you get a blush that works pretty decent. Not a fan of the contouring though, so just keep that in mind. And look at that nose highlight. We are going to move on to the eyeshadow palette. Packaging is very sturdy. Like, if you just look at it from afar, you wouldn't think that this is only $12. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5 matte shades and the rest are shimmers. So I love the fact that they laid out the transition shades in here. And then you have a black and then somewhat of a minty white color. So what I'm going to do is to actually swatch the matte shades first. So I'm going to go here. It feels a little bit chalky. Keep that in mind because, you know, for $12 it's honestly not that bad. So here are the matte shades. So here are the swatches. As you can see, the darker shades are a little bit patchy. The lighter shades are somewhat chalky and powdery, but I mean, it's there, the pigment is there, so for less 75 cents a pan, that's actually really good. So now I am going to swatch the shimmery shades. So let's try this blue and the green, a little bit of this white. Ooh, that swatch is terrible. It's very sheer. I feel like you would need a primer for that one. And the green is not swatching pretty nicely. And we'll try this cranberry shade. So here are the swatches. As you can see, the white barely showed up. The cranberry shade looked pretty good. And the blue shade is a little bit too powdery and uneven. Same as the green, it's not as intense. But, you know, it could totally translate differently on the eyes. So I've already put concealer on obviously beforehand and primed my eyes. So to powder my eyelids, I'm going to start off with the shade right here, which is a tad powdery and has a lot of kickback, but that doesn't really bother me. That showed up pretty good. For transition shade, I don't want to dive into the dark brown shade. So I'm going to slowly dip into the shade right here, which is a beige shade. And just put that all over my eyes. So now what I'm going to do is to mix this shade right here to this shade because I don't really want to put a darker eyeshadow straight away. So we are going to pick up this brush right here and dip into this brown shade and a little bit of that. It needs a little bit of packing on, so I suggest for you to pack the color first and then start blending. That way you get the pigment. But you know what, actually I feel like mattes are a little bit harder to achieve, especially for a very affordable eyeshadow, because tendencies are they can get a little bit chalky, patchy, not blended, overly powdery. So what I'm actually going to do is to just pick up this darker brown shade and further pack that on the outer V with the same brush. And I'm going to pick up that beige shade again just to blend the top and the edges. So now I am going to switch over to a quite denser blending brush and I'm going to try put a little bit of black on the outer V. Oh wow, I did not expect that to have a lot of pigment or even show up at all. It's not even that patchy. Like, it blends well with that brown, so I'm going to go back with that brown to blend in. What I find is that this eyeshadow are blending out great. It doesn't take away any shadows at all. It builds it up pretty good. This shade right here could have been a little bit more darker, just so you have a nice gradient from the lighter shade to the darkest, but then overall it kind of works as a blender. Use this shade right here on like the outer part of the eyes, so maybe I am going to pick up like a flat brush. I'm not going to put any primer or anything like that because I actually want to fully test the eyeshadow, so I'm going to put that just here. It kind of shows up a little bit. Like when the light hits, the sheen of the green is there, but if you look closely on my eyes, the pigment is not actually there. Like, it's just a hint of color. So now with the same brush, I'll just kind of wipe it off. I am going to pick up the blue shade right there. Oh, this one is a little bit powdery, so I'm going to apply that. Okay, this eyeshadow does not want to blend. It's patchy, like that's not a good move, so I'm gonna go back to that green and actually put that on top of the blue. Just looks patchy AF. For the inner part of the lid, I am going to switch over to this brush actually, and I'm going to pick up that gold shade right there and put that kind of like in the inner part. At least that shows up. Let's see if it will show up more using my finger. Oh yes, that's a lot better. And we'll try with the green as well. I think I want to put a little bit of that white eyeshadow just in between the green and the bronze gold. So what I'm going to do is to pick up my handy dandy pigment brush, place that just here. It has like a cream consistency. I mean, that's looking pretty decent and quite pigmented. So now for the lower lash line, I am gonna go and use the darker brown shade and apply that all over. Maybe I will use this shade right here on the outer part. Ooh, that made it very smoky. I like it. I like a good smoky lower lash line. So for the inner part of the eyes, I am going to go and use this red right here. At this point, I'm kind of just using pretty much the shades. That one doesn't really show up that much. Maybe if I change the brush. And I'm just gonna quickly blend the outer V. And for the inner corner highlight, I am going to go and use this shade right here, which is a nice, I'm not sure, it's like a darker champagne gold, which hardly shows up. So what I'm going to do is to pick up that white shade and mix that in with the pink. This is my final look. Overall, my thoughts about this eyeshadow palette, it's a decent eyeshadow palette. I wouldn't say this is the greatest, I wouldn't say this is bad, but the eyeshadow shades are actually workable. My favorite part of this eyeshadow are actually the mattes, because surprisingly enough, they blended out on my eyes quite decent. And yeah, I've got nothing bad to say about the mattes, though the shimmers, even though they look alright on the pan, they don't actually perform quite as good as I thought they would. I mean, like, the colors definitely show up, but it's the type of eyeshadow where if you wear it throughout the day, it will just end up fading, like you're left with no pigment at all. I actually quite enjoyed this white eyeshadow right here, which is quite sheer and it has like a weird consistency. I feel like this eyeshadow right here could be a great eyeshadow topper, which is what I did on the green. As you can see, it definitely made it look more vibrant. It changed the appearance of the eyeshadow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!